What is going on, everybody? This is your host, Rob, back with another episode of From My Experience Podcast. I have a guest with me, Miss B. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I am well. So, I'm going to tell everybody how much of a creep I am. So,
Ooh, I want to know.
no, wait, no. Nah. Just putting this out there for anybody looking to start a podcast or looking to do something different. You got to step outside your comfort zone. You got to step outside the box. So obviously, I have From My Experience Podcast, and I'm like, all right. So to go along with the name, I want to talk to people about their experiences in life, just like me and my co-host do. So shout out to Alex, shout out to Biff, and shout out to Tori. So I'm in a bunch of podcast groups, which I love. I love my podcast groups because they let you post and you get good advice in there. So I was like, you know what? I want some more guests. I want to hear from more people. So I just put up a random post like, who wants to be on? And B was one of the people who responded. A lot of people actually responded, and I sent everyone the calendar invites and everyone the topics, but only one person followed through. And you know what? That's good enough for me. So we don't know each other. We are podcast brethren, if you will.
Yes.
And you were telling me a little about what you're doing and how you're transitioning into some things, and we're kind of having a conversation before we got started. So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I go by B. I'm from the Bronx. I am Dominican. I identify as Afro-Latina. I am a special ed teacher in the Bronx. I also have been pole dancing for about 3 years. I was a pole dance instructor for a few months. I am taking time off to focus on my podcast, which is called Problematic or Nah. And we will be discussing just random things related to the social political climate, our culture, specifically Black culture, calling out bigotry, talking about things like interracial dating, sex, body shaming, cultural appropriation. I'm hoping to strike up some controversy, but have some much needed conversations. And my co-host is Anthony McPherson, who is a pretty established poet and also social political commentary. And I'm very excited to start. We are going to have our Kickstarter in mid-August, and after that is finished, mid to late September, we're hoping to launch our podcast. So you can follow us on Problematic or Nah podcast on Instagram, or Problematic or N at Twitter to stay updated.
Bam, there y'all go. Make sure after we finish recording, shoot me those, and I'll post it in the description of this episode when I post it.
Definitely.
Y'all support podcasters, damn it. So
Yes, we need it. All right. We're providing all this free content and knowledge for y'all. It takes up a lot of time, but we love it and we can't do it without your support.
yes,
So,
that is for sure. I was just in my podcast group on Facebook, just thanking everybody, looking at where we started and where we are now, and how much we've grown, and how much I've actually inspired quite a few other people to start podcasts, and I was like, damn, that's big. So I just hope the podcast community keeps growing. I wish you the best of luck with yours. I'm definitely going to check it out. Definitely going to have you and your boyfriend on again on our show after you guys get started up, with the rest of the
definitely.
staff on there, because we touch on some of those topics too. So it'd be great to exchange that dialogue.
Oh, definitely. We can do a collab. You can come on ours, come on yours, maybe do like a joint episode. We'll figure it out. I think it'll be really cool.
Absolutely. Now, I know some people out here heard you say pole dancing. Please, because I
Yep.
know some people are ignorant. So please
Yep.
explain to people exactly what that is before they think I'm talking to just someone who strips or something crazy.
Okay. First of all, shout out to my strippers out there because without them, pole would not have been in the
Hey,
mainstream,
shout.
right? And I have lots of friends that are strippers. I have nothing against it. You get your money, you
That's
do your
right.
thing, right? So I started pole dancing because I had had a few foot surgeries and I gained some weight and I was
Mm,
trying other forms of exercises and I just found them boring. I like hate going to the gym and all that
mm-hmm.
stuff. So I found a Groupon to take a pole dancing class and I loved it. I always grew up feeling self-conscious. And so it made me feel confident and strong and powerful. And I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to learn how to be a really cool dancer. And it became just like a meditation for me, an exercise for me. I built the best community, the most supportive community. I don't think the podcasting community is very supportive, but the
Right.
pole dancing community, it's like a family. And I found my strength, and I competed for the first time this past
Oh
March.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's calisthenics, right? There's
Hmm.
dance, there's different styles of pole. There's exotic, there's sensual, there's purely athletic, there's contemporary. So it's really what you want it to be, and it's for men, women, um, any gender, sexual orientation, body size. There are plus size pole dancers. There are people who pole dance when they're much older, and there are children who do it. In Russia, they have camps for children to pole dance,
Wow.
because people see it as something like purely sexual, which
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
But I think because we are in a country that prides itself on its puritanical, foundations, this idea of like, especially women owning their bodies and doing something that's not for male consumption, even though it typically is,
Hmm.
I think kind of rubs people the wrong way. But I find that really empowering. And when I was teaching, I really enjoyed seeing my students progress and really feel proud of themselves and feel good about themselves. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. It's really hard to explain what pole dancing is. I think you just have to do it,
Yeah.
and then you get it. And my students know that I pole dance, and my coworkers, and everyone's extremely supportive. They think it's so badass when I show them some tricks I can do. They're like, "Miss, you mad fucking strong." I'm like, "Yeah, don't mess with me."
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've actually watched videos and seen that. Actually watched some competitions. It's been a while ago since I've seen one. But yeah, you did a good job of explaining. Cause a lot of people don't know that is excellent exercise, and it takes a hell of a lot of strength to get up there and do some of those moves. Like it is ridiculous. Um,
Yep.
so about how long would you say it took you to actually really get good at it? Or I guess tell us, do you remember? Okay, you bought the Groupon. You signed up for this class. Do you remember what your first time was like?
Oh yeah, I was a mess. I was so uncoordinated. Um, I was like jello because there's certain moves, you have to have like, the proper muscle engagement. I still
Right.
didn't understand all of that. Um, but I kept going and going. Then the instructor was like, "Oh, you're moving on to level one," because there's intro and then there's beginner, which is like level one, and that's when you start working on climbing. And I go to the level one class, and these people are so advanced. I'm like, what the hell did I do? Oh my god, I'm terrible. um, but I just kept at it and kept at it. And then I had to do another surgery, so I had to take a couple months off. And then the entire time I was just like, I can't wait to get back to pole. And I found it, and I fell in love with it. I was poling like 3 4 hours a day,
Whoa.
between 4 to 6 days a week.
Whew.
But with pole, because it's so strenuous, you are prone to injury.
Oh,
So
okay.
I have been having issues with a shoulder injury, and that's another reason why I was like, let me just cut back. The podcast was a great time for me to say, okay, I'm gonna, step back from teaching, and I still keep up with cross training. I do go to the gym because it does help me with pole. Um, my partner and I are doing Krav Maga to like learn some self defense, because when we start this podcast, the haters are gonna come out, and we got to be able to kick the white conservatives in the chest.
Wait.
So
You so y'all ready to fuck somebody up? You
basically, yes,
well,
yes,
hopefully it won't. It won't.
yeah. Well, my
It won't. Hopefully it won't come to that. I
I
mean,
hope not.
once you.
But my co-host
Okay.
already gets a lot of hate
Oh
from
shit.
conservative groups.
Okay.
Like threats. They've like found his address, and
What?
and yeah, these white conservatives is mostly white male conservatives, and of course you have like other people that are like, oh, you're just being divisive because they think you talk about race, you're being divisive,
Right.
but not talking about it, you're not addressing it. And so one of the concerns was, if we do this podcast together, that might come towards me. And so in order to protect both of us, we're like, now we're gonna learn how to kick some ass. Like nobody's gonna mess with us, you know.
You know what? That's actually smart. I hate that we're in a society and the world is to a place to, well, I mean, it's been here for a while, to where your freedom of speech is now threatened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everyone else wants to come out and say whatever they want to say, and we hear this racist shit on TV and see it on social
Mhm.
media. We got our president tweeting out crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? But when we want to do a podcast, which is, you know, a podcaster, you say he writes poetry, correct?
Yeah.
And this is what cracks me up about people who are attacking him. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to engage with me. You're
Exactly.
choosing to sit down, follow me, stalk me, or whatever, to find out whatever you want to find out. And you're taking that energy and putting it towards me. I mean, if you don't agree with what I have to say, then you don't have to listen. So I definitely want
Mhm.
y'all to be safe. Try
Yeah.
not to catch no charges. Damn, I really hope, I really hope nothing happens.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's crazy. But okay, where'd you go to college?
Fordham University for undergrad and LIU Brooklyn for grad school.
Hey.
Yes.
So why education?
To be honest, I wanted to go into speech pathology. And that would have required a whole other master's.
Okay.
But being a, first generation in the US, living at home with my mom, she was like, I can't afford you going to school and not working full time anymore. Like, I need you to help out.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to find a way to get a master's for basically free. I mean, I did have to pay a little bit, but it wasn't so bad, through the New York City Teaching Fellows. And that allowed me to start getting a salary right away, benefits right away, and get my master's. And that way I could contribute and help my mom more. I had always worked with kids in some capacity, and people are just like, you're so good at talking. You're so great at connecting with people, to the point where I was like, well, I talk so damn much. Why the fuck am I not a millionaire? You know?
Gotta be talking to the right people.
Exactly. But in the hood, like, we all in the same place right now.
Yeah.
So I went to school for that, and I'm not to brag, but I am good at it. I am very big on giving back to my community. So I was raised in the South Bronx. I teach in the South Bronx. That was very intentional for me. When I started, there were only two teachers of color at my school. There are no white kids at our school. Our school is all Black and Latinx. Now we're getting a little bit more like Asian students, but like very small percentage. And now, because I've been on my school's hiring committee, we've made it our mission to attract more people of color. And we actually hired our school's first Black male teacher ever last year.
Yo, all right.
Yeah.
So it's funny you say that. So I also used to teach. I taught for 7 years. I taught elementary school.
Whoa.
And yeah. It's funny you say that, man. And you and I share the same struggle of our love for kids and education, and then we also have our passions outside of that, which are drawing us away from it. Because I was, to my knowledge, the music teacher, but there was only, when I got there was three or four male teachers at my elementary school, like, and I was the only classroom, like, curriculum, math, science, social studies, English teacher. So I was like a freaking, I can't even think of the word, not phenomenon, whatever the word. I was just like an anomaly. They're like, the kids were like mesmerized, like walking in my room. And, when you have meet the teacher night and those white parents walking in and just looking like, wait, he's Black. Like, it's because my last name is Wilson. So,
Exactly. You're like,
My name is Robert Wilson. So, like, you can't, you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't know. So,
exactly.
But yeah, it's definitely, you experience some culture shock, and it's good to make an impact and represent for your culture and let people know, hey, we are educated. We know what we're doing. We can hold down a profession, and your kids love me. So ha.
Exactly. It's really important that our kids see us and that they see us, like, in the classroom and as people that we can connect with. Hold on one second. I am so sorry.
No, you're good.
I think my dog is clawing at the door. She's usually very good when I'm interviewing, but she's acting up today.
That's fine. Alex, my co-host Alex's dog always acts up during the show. Shout out to Ace. Ace is always barking and stuff. No, you good.
She was just scratching at the door. And I'm really great at connecting with them. And I am one of the co-leaders of our school's restorative justice action team. So we do a lot of social emotional learning, a lot of self-discovery. But unfortunately, like you said, we're being pulled away from it, and
Hmm.
it's sad. And sometimes I feel a little bad because I'm
Yeah.
like, who's gonna be there for these kids in this way?
Yeah.
But I think as teachers, and for me as a woman and a woman of color, it's always like you put other people before you, and
Hmm.
especially as teachers, put your kids before yourself. And I think that that's detrimental. And I'm hoping with this podcast, it'll open up other avenues for me to be able to still serve my community, but in ways that are more fulfilling to me. And to be honest, that provide me with a more livable wage
Hey,
because
listen.
because I'm still sleeping on my mama's couch because New York is so fucking expensive.
Right.
You can pay up to $1,500 for a bedroom in a messed up building. It's
Woo!
trash, you
Yeah,
know?
y'all, you might need to relocate. Listen, I'm with you. I know teachers make peanuts. Shout out to all my educators out there. Not
Yes,
to
thank
insult
you.
y'all salary. I used to make it. I mean, barely making with 7 years of experience. You making a little over. I was making a little over 2,000 a month. A little over, like maybe
Wow.
2,100. Yeah.
I'm not even there yet. I'm entering my 6th year and I get about 1,600 a month because of all
What?
this. Yeah, and to
Yo.
be honest, like a lot of it is taken out because of New York. I guess there's all these extra taxes that are taken
Nah,
out.
I can't. I can't. I, I, I can't.
It's hard.
It makes
I
no
know.
sense. I don't understand places like New York and California. Like it's so expensive to live, but then you have these professions, and it's like I love my kids, and I want to work with kids, but it's like I can't live. Like
Yeah.
I'm literally dying. Like
Yep. And and they just voted to like basically disempower the unions. I don't know if you heard of
uh
the Janice case.
no.
Um, so
So
before
we
you
don't have
had to
unions down here. So
Oh, oh yeah. Before you had to pay into the union. Now there was a ruling, basically was decided that you don't have to pay if you don't want to, which means that some people are not going to want to pay
mm,
and they're still going to be receiving the same benefits, which isn't fair to the people that are.
right.
And then the union will have a lot less power in
Yep.
terms of like collective bargaining and benefits and all this stuff that they've worked really hard to achieve. And so I'm really worried about the state of education and long term, if I stay in the profession, I won't be able to retire for 40 years. I don't know what's going to happen to the profession in 40 years, especially with Trump's changes and trying to merge with the labor budgets department, something like that. I don't even know.
That son of a. Let me
I
stop for
know.
that. Let me stop for somebody knock on the door.
I know. So please support us podcasters so that podcasting can become as big as radio and television and we can
Yes.
actually make a living off of it.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, we're gonna talk off here. I got some stuff I want to run by you. I'm working. I'm
Awesome.
working on something like that with a friend of mine. Shout out to my boy CV from We Here Man podcast.
Hey,
Um.
CV, I'm going to follow you.
Yes. Please follow him. And his wife Nella B. Their show is great. You just made me scared because you just gave me a flashback, and that what you just said is part of the reason why I left education myself. It's like there's so much controversy and conflict and uncertainty floating around it. It's like I can't stay here for this. Like I don't want to
Hmm.
stay here not knowing what my fate is going to be. 5-10 years from now. Like I can't do that. And so the other thing you mentioned was the pressure. Like being a black man, like when I told people I was not coming back, it was just like, oh my God, they need you. You're a black male. We need y'all in the classroom. And I'm like, I know, but y'all need us a
Hmm.
million other places too. And it's just like, I had an internal struggle of, okay, do I basically make myself a martyr for the people and sacrifice the myself, or do I say, let me be a little bit more selfish and find a way where I can still help people and put out a positive message and influence people, but in a way that makes me happy as well. And that's the path that I chose, because if you're not happy, people are going to see it, they're going to feel it, you know what I'm saying, and it's
Hmm.
going to affect your day to day. So that's why I pursued, other avenues, being real estate, but and a few other things. So I feel where you're coming from on that. So now you said you're gonna pull back from education and focus more on your pole dancing. So what does that look like? Are you
Well, right now, I put pole dancing on the back burner,
okay?
but that was originally my plan. So my goal right now is to focus on the podcast.
Okay.
If the podcast does open other things up for me, then I would leave teaching, but I'm also not gonna give up a salary, because it
Yeah.
is tough out there. And to be honest, like, all my friends actually are freelancers, and yeah, they have more freedom, but financially they're struggling in New York City. So right now it's the podcast, and then I'm hoping that once that opens other things up, I can also be able to go back to doing the things that I love, like pole dancing. Um, yeah, my bosses can kind of tell that I'm burned out,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't say anything, because you know how it is. Once they know you're on your way out, they'll push you out.
Oh,
Um,
really? Well,
kind
I
of.
had the opposite experience. They were trying to get me to stay, but I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, so they are trying to get me to stay, but I've seen it happen before with other people, where they try to get them to stay, and then it reaches a point where they're like, you know what, just go. And I am tenured, so it's not like they can just leave me like
Right.
bye. But they do keep trying to be like, hey, like, this, we wouldn't be able to function without you. You're great with the kids. They try to give me more things to do, but I'm not taking it. So they offered me an additional role as our school's restorative justice coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, unfortunately, it'd be comp time because we can't pay you for it. And I was like, no.
Yeah, no, that.
I was like, that's insulting. It's not easy to be a restorative justice coordinator. That's a full-time job. And I was like, no. And I think that's when they kind of were like, oh, before she would have jumped at this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, unless you give me more money, then no. Like,
Yeah, because it's crazy that you look at every other career field, and typically when your level of responsibility increases and your task increases and the time you put in increases, so does your pay. Education is just like, oh, volunteer, and it's like, I love to volunteer, it's fun, it's great, but it's like, I still gotta live, and it's like nobody gets that. And it's like, they should be compensated more. Teachers should be compensated more and treated much better. Granted, you get summers off, but you need it. Like,
I have not felt rested this whole summer. I feel like I'm still catching up on everything from the year, and it's August, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna need for you to take, like, you and the man need to take a vacation or something.
We're gonna take a little something.
Okay.
But it's just like a short thing. However, I have learned that at the end of the day, if I were to drop dead, I'd be replaced within 2 seconds.
Jesus.
So I manage. I mean, we're all replaceable when you look at it, right? Like,
That's
the
true.
world's not going to stop for us. It'll feel like it stopped for the people that really love us, but it's going to keep going. So if I'm absent one day, the school's not going to burn down. It'll be fine. So if I need a day, I take my days off. They don't like when you take days off after vacation. If I want to, I do it. I don't take any work home, because you have to preserve your sanity as well. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
You just said something that I've really been considering myself. Is I don't want to do anything else where I have to take my work home with me. Like, that is just like, because you never get away. You never feel like you get away from it. It's like you're always at work.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to always be at work, Unless, like, your job is, like, eating ice cream or something. But not even that.
Yeah.
So tell me more about, let me get back to this pole dancing.
Dancing.
What muscle groups do you think are the most important?
Well, the one that we always talk about are the lats. So
I
it's
don't know
like
what that is. Oh,
so it's kind of like, well, I don't really know anatomy like that if I don't, I don't remember. But yeah, they're like in your upper back muscles. So with pole, we use a lot of our shoulders, but the best way to really like engage, the best way to kind of prevent any major injuries or really pulling from the shoulder is by engaging your lats, and it's those like upper back muscles. And definitely your core. I forgot the name of that muscle group, but definitely core, especially lower abs. I feel like for me is a big thing. But I would definitely say it's those two.
Okay, so
yeah.
So people need to do, and she's right. Yeah, the lats or latissimus dorsi.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
probably saying it wrong, but I don't care. So basically, the backside of your rib cage, all up in there, and then like your abs. Everybody knows what the abs are. So based off
Mhm.
of that, my pole dancing ability would be trash right about now. So I don't think I'm gonna take a go at that. So what else? What else is important? What do you have? Let's say there's someone out here listening who's thinking about doing this for the first time. What would you say to them?
I would say to let go.
Okay.
Especially as adults, and not saying that pole is only for women because it's not, but it is very women dominated. Um, a lot of times we tend to feel really self-conscious or we feel like people are looking at us, and especially because with pole it does, no matter what style, there is still a sensual element to it. We pride ourselves on being very cerebral and being like, oh, I'm so smart, right? I'm so intuitive. But that kind of leads us out of our bodies. So with pole, you have to kind of let go of all those thoughts and kind of like not focus so much on thinking and just feeling and doing. And I feel that people have the most breakthroughs when they do that. So it's just let go. Don't worry about what anyone is thinking. If you need to, close your eyes and just focus on what feels good, not what looks good, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense.
Also, pole hurts, so be prepared.
So they need some Epsom salt to soak in the tub when they finish.
Epsom salt, arnica gel. Do not wear lotions or oils before class because you will slip. You will slip. It's dangerous.
I'm sorry. I could just see someone sliding all around the pole. That's crazy.
Exactly.
That's not funny, but it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. Um, and so yeah, so no lotions or oils, no jewelry because that'll scratch the pole. It does hurt. You will get bruises, you'll get burns, you might get cuts. Um, but yeah, so just keep that in
Wow.
mind.
This
Yeah.
shit sounds dangerous. I knew someone, well, I know someone, she was taking pole classes and she had bruises on her legs and stuff, but she was really enjoying it. And it goes back to what you said. She said it was really like a community. Everyone was so nice and she couldn't wait to go back. Um, do you have, or if you don't, would you put a pole in your house to practice at home as well?
I have had a pole in my house well, before I was with this person, I was with someone else
Okay.
for a long time and we lived together briefly. And I had a pole up in our bedroom and he was never there. He was in the living room. I'd be like, get out. It's time for me to practice my pole. And I would just use it. If you do have a pole at home, I do advise people to really do their research. Make sure you get a reputable brand, that you install it properly and you're constantly maintaining it. A lot of times you see videos where poles like fall down.
I've
It's
laughed at a ton
because
of those videos.
yes, it's because either the pole's not good quality or the people don't constantly maintain it. So a lot of those poles are held by tension and you have to have them
Mm,
on a support beam in the ceiling. So you do need a stud finder. Another thing is that the tension loosens up the more you use it. So you have to constantly retighten it and people forget to do that. And so you have to make sure that you're safe. Do not try anything new. You should save things that are new for when there's someone there to spot you or there's an instructor.
mm-hmm.
Use it more to condition and to practice things you already know. I do understand pole is very expensive, and there are some people that can't afford to take classes, so they teach themselves. I say just exercise caution, use a crash mat, make sure that you have a solid foundation of before trying a trick. So, like before you try a butterfly, make sure you have a strong, Jamila. Make sure you can, do a nice bracket grip, right? So just like understanding the foundational moves before you go up to the bigger moves. Um, I had to say that because I want everyone to be safe.
Yeah, I have laughed at some of those videos, but only because they got up right afterwards. But
Yeah.
I've cringed too because I'm like, yo, if she was like one more inch to the left, or if she was tilted a little bit more, like her neck would have been done. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so I'm definitely glad that you gave those safety tips for the people out there, because there's people out there listening who probably do. I know for a fact actually somebody that listens that has a pole in their house.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I hope they're maintaining their pole. So all right, I'm not gonna hold you up. Is there any? Do you have any advice in general, life advice for the people out there listening? Another
So
young
much
lady up there in New York that might be listening to,
related to pole or just in general?
in general.
Oh, fuck them. Basically, that no,
Wait.
no.
Okay.
Okay, not like, well, if you
Oh.
want to, if you take that literal, that's fine too. I am pro ho, I do not slut shame, but I mean in the sense of like, don't care what people think, right? It's and we're always going to care, but try to push past that. Do you take risk? Yeah, and I think that's something that I'm have to constantly remind myself now that I'm venturing into this podcast world. I'm like, what if it doesn't work? What if people hate it? What if, I end up staying stuck in teaching forever, blah blah blah. And everyone was like, fuck it. Fuck them. Who cares if people hate it? Don't see them laugh. Just keep it moving, So just fuck it all. Do you push through, believe in yourself, know your worth.
Damn.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. You said something really important too. Um, those of you who are thinking about starting something like a podcast, I had a friend who was apprehensive, and she was like, "I don't know what people are gonna think. I don't know." And I was like, "Don't do your podcast for other people. It's not like you're trying to design a car that you want to sell. For
Mhm.
me, my podcast is therapeutic. I do this because it's fun. It's stuff I want to talk about, and I'm like, my audience will find me. People are gonna
Mhm.
listen. Either they're gonna like it, or they're gonna hate it. It's just like music. I don't dislike country music, but I don't listen to it. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So it's just like, don't feel like, oh, you're not really putting it out there to be judged. You're putting it out there just so you can spread your message, because there's always someone who's gonna need a word, or someone who can relate to it, and that's gonna be your audience. And podcast audiences are really strong. So
Mhm.
again, I wish y'all the best of luck. Give them all your information one more time.
Yes. So the name of the podcast is Problematic or Nah, spelled NAH, obviously. The Instagram is Problematic or Nah Podcast, and the Twitter is Problematic or N. It was too long, I guess. But yeah, please check us out. Stay tuned for updates on our Kickstarter and our launch dates. We will have really awesome perks. You'll be able to contribute topic ideas so you can hear the things that you want to, talk about. We will have an opportunity for people to tweet and call in, and for one of our higher tier donors, there's an opportunity to guest on our podcast. So if you really want to be part of the discussion, follow Problematic or Not podcast and stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. B, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, y'all know where y'all can find us from My Experience Podcast on Facebook, FME_podcast on Instagram. Y'all know y'all can listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you love listening to podcasts. If you have a topic, send us an email. If you want to be a guest, you can also send us an email from myexperiencepodcast@gmail.com. I will send you my Calendly, which I just set up. And you can set up a day and time, and it pops up on my calendar, so I'll know I won't miss it. Um, I just want to give another huge shout out to everyone in our Facebook group. We're almost at 1,000 people, and the more stuff I'm posting, I'm starting to see a lot more engagement. I'm starting to see more different people start to engage in the conversation, and that's what we want. We want to bring that conversation to the forefront and bring it on the show. So thank y'all, and we'll catch y'all next time. Peace.
Bye.
Oh, y'all thought I forgot. This week's word for our giveaway is turkey.